This is Bite the Hand That Feeds, a zombie-based D&D 5e variant which is streamed live on Twitch every Sunday. What you're about to watch is the Session 0, a introduction to the campaign with a walkthrough of the start of the pandemic. If you would like to get straight into the action, then Episode 1 is available next in the playlist. Otherwise, settle in for an introduction to the campaign and the characters.
You want Dungeons, you want Dragons. You got no Dungeons and Dragons, you got zombies, baby. Right. Welcome. So we are using a system that I borrowed from the GM Binder for the Zombie Apocalpse campaign. So there's some rules in there. It's based on the 5e rule set in the main, but everybody is a human in the wonderful city of Milton Keynes. And that's where we'll be kicking off tonight's campaign. It is early in 2020. The world has been in a pandemic, funnily enough, one like we've just seen. And everyone was confined to their homes in kind of the view that this was the best way to stop the spread of any sort of disease further. And that's been that way for 3 or 4 months. As recent months and weeks have gone on and news stories are coming out and there's lots of conspiracy theories around it, you hear across the news that they're urging people to stay within their houses because there's been a spree of violence from supposed looters, and it is not safe to go outside, and the government is going to need to intervene because people are not obeying by the rules, and they're trying to curb this kind of outbreak of bandits and looters. Social media tells a kind of different story where there is a more gruesome tale of people being pulled out of houses, murdered in the streets. And whilst you haven't seen any of this firsthand, any of you, the reports don't kind of correlate with what the big news teams are spouting. So we roll into, it's probably around early March time, as the government has ordered a mass exodus of the smaller towns and cities. And they will be moving people towards these encampments. This night, you are being moved, all of you out yourselves, and taken to the local encampment, which is just outside of Milton Keynes, about an hour's, about 40 minutes to an hour drive outside of Milton Keynes. There is a small town with a large school that has been turned into this kind of encampment where all you've been told is to grab your provisions. If you are a skilled labourer, you've been told to grab your tools of that trade and to leave everything else behind as you're being brought here for your safety, so they can keep count of everybody. So you are one of the last vans to be taken out of Milton Keynes, and you have been loaded into just whatever vehicles they can get hold. You won't be all in military vehicles. It looks like they've kind of gained access to every sort of vehicle you can find. You've got old minibuses from churches, from schools, from local clubs that have all been pulled together. They've commandeered all of these vehicles and they're loading up and dropping people off at these encampments. So that's where we start the campaign. So you guys have been dropped off at the Buckingham Processing Centre, and as you exit the minibuses, and it's not just your minibus pulling, you have been thrown out of this minibus, and there's 4 or 5 of them up in front of you, and if you imagine you're walking up to a floodlit school, it looks nothing like a school as you'd imagine it. There's a big corrugated iron fence that runs around the outside of the school as they've kind of cordoned off the field and car park area. You can see large army tents and just this huge rabble of noise from people screaming, children crying. There's lots of shouting going on. A general feel of panic as you're gridded into almost like how you would shuttle cattle down a line to get them into the right lanes. Like a gig, but with a lot more panic and fear around it. And as you come up to the front, this will be everyone apart from Lieutenant Bradley, who you're already inside the camp. So as you come up to the main gate, you will be processed and then sent off to a tent, and a light pat down is done of each of your persons. Everybody passes through that pat down, and they will give you a stamp based on your use and your ability. So we'll get into that a little bit later. And you've all been handed a ration pack. So within that, you've been given 5 days worth of rations. So if you'll just note down that you have 5 days each worth of rations. You've all been given a yellow armband and told that this is for your segment of the encampment that you're going to, and to follow then to the tent that is marked within the yellow set. So, and rations will be part of the survival aspect of the campaign as we go through, but we'll explain as we go. So you have all been marked through, checked, passed on, and all but Lieutenant Bradley have arrived into the tent. So you arrive one by one into the tent, and I suppose it's kind of over to you guys as you walk through the tent to describe your character a little bit, just for everyone.
I'm Dylan Mills, 19 years old. I was minding my own business, selling food out on road, trying to get my money up, but that came to an end when I was rounded up from my home by these soldiers. I don't trust them at all, and I don't trust any of these fools I've ended up with. I'm the only one with my interests at heart, and if it's down to me or someone else for survival, then you're damn sure it'll be me.
Andrew Sharp, or Starbuck, as he is known for his love of coffee, is an ex-fisherman who has been recently released from Wood Hill Prison after a 7-year lockup. He doesn't talk much about why he was imprisoned, nor does he talk much of family or friends. A quiet man who speaks when asked something or feels like it is necessary for him to speak out. Has many skills and was planning on moving back out to the Mediterranean before all of this kicked off. And now he's stuck with this ragaband group.
So my name is Mark Rogers, but just call me Beth. I'm a carpenter by trade, and this is all very scary. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, and I mean I promised myself I wouldn't gamble anymore. I made a promise to my family. But, I mean, at the moment, the people I'm with feel like they'll be gambling on my life.
Luke Warm is a divorced former chef who worked in a family-run independent pub, which unfortunately burnt down, rendering him redundant. The fire reported in the media as electrical fault was, however, caused by other means, which Luke is well aware of, and 4 people died as a result of this fire. Looking to start afresh, he was approached at a recruitment fair and sold the Milton Keynes dream, turning up on his first day to find that maybe this dream was more of a nightmare.
Name's Lieutenant Bradley Graves, 12-year veteran of the British Army. Spent time in Afghanistan and Iraq, and I've seen things there that God knows I want to unsee. Currently helping these guys out and making sure that they stay safe. They gotta start trusting each other. So much fighting, so much bickering over little pointless shit. If they known half the stuff that I've seen and the stuff that I have to fucking watch every time I close my eyes and try and go to sleep, man, they'd soon change their tune.
So you have been called forward, buddy, into a room with your superior there and everyone that's been in charge of tents. And they I've told you that you need to keep people inside the tents because we are trying to lock as many people as possible and keep the area as quiet as possible because we believe that there may be an attack on the base during the night. So you've been told to try and keep the peace, and you are in charge of the tents within the yellow zone area. No, you've just been told you've got to keep the people safe, try and keep them in the tents because you're worried about essentially the people in the camp as much as the people outside the camp. There is and as you you're in this tent, there is just this vast, like, it's just a rabble. There's just a lot of noise, and if you were to stop to think, there's lots of people screaming, there's lots of crying, there's lots of shouting. There's a lot of violence towards the army officials as well, because there's a lot of confusion about what's going on and what people are being given. They've had to leave stuff behind. They've been separated from people, so it's a case of trying to keep the peace and keep everyone in the tents as long as possible. If you hear over the radio, the call comes in to say, we need to get people inside. There is an imminent attack coming from the north of the base. Only you and Starbuck, you would have overheard this coming over as the kind of backwards and forwards is happening between Dylan and between Lieutenant Bradley, that you get the call and you hear that in your ear. But then also Starbuck, you'd have heard that as well. Yep. And at that point, as you open the door, you hear from what would be the north side of the camp a burst fire of 3 rounds. Nice. So as you come out of the tent and you leave the guys, you've got your hand on your pistol, you're walking towards where you would have heard, where you know the north side of the camp is. You hear another gun burst, and from what you can see, it looks like there is the north fence is beginning to sway. So where the floodlights are up and they're lighting down, as it like everywhere is lit by these big old floodlights. They're not tall, super tall floodlights. You're talking the ones that would have been wheeled in, that are probably 1 story high. they're lighting up, and you can see the fence is just waving, and it's probably about 100 meters forward, but because of that, that's all you see. You're not seeing what's waving it, and you can see and hear the kind of, over the calls and the general panic of people, you can hear orders being barked out that you would recognize as being commands to kind of your fellow. Yeah. So you guys, so again, those in the tent you've just seen Lieutenant Graves say, "Look, please stay in the tent, leave now." And as he's walked out and left off, you've heard another burst of 3 gunshots. So about this time, as the conversation's going on, Dave, you get up to probably about 50 meters away from where the fence is, and you can see the fence is swaying heavily now, backwards and forwards, and then another set of gunfire bursts come out. As out of one of the nearby kind of admin tents, your lieutenant comes out and just grabs you and goes, Lieutenant, get back to your area. I need you to start prepping the people to evacuate. We're not sure if we're going to need to go yet, but I need you to make sure that you're in charge of getting these people out. You know where the minibuses are parked. Grab a set of keys, and you are in charge of getting Yellow Tent out. I said we're going to be passing this message to each of the tents. We'll be rounding up all of those just in case we need to go, but wait for the call before you start the evacuation. We have a problem. Well, we'll see just before you get, so you're on your way back. So guys in the tent. You've heard another. You're hearing periodic 3 fire burst rounds. You're hearing lots more. Like the level of rabble is raised now, as there's a lot more screaming and panic, as obviously gunfires are being visibly heard. You can hear orders being barked by other army members out there, and as you're moving down as well, Lieutenant Graves, you're seeing your other troops in your regiment are all pulling out, and these are like you said, everyone's just been called together. This isn't one unit. This is a reserve unit and the unit that's based nearby, and you've all been bundled together and given these orders. So it's like a real hodgepodge of the kind of armed forces. But you're seeing everyone doing the same thing. That everyone's been given those orders, and some people have been put in charge of tents, and they're all going to secure their tents. Yeah. So you hit the people, and as you come across, this is like a school basketball court. Probably like a 2-3 of them, like a big old size area just filled with minibuses, and they're bumper to bumper. So you're like, unless we were at the front, we're not getting out of here until other people get out of here. So and at this time as well, other groups are being led up around you. So people are starting out. You were like one of the first ones there, but other groups are now starting to pile up. Some being led by members of the army, some that are just kind of chancing and running up towards the minibuses because they see that's where people are moving towards. So you can hear that from where your angle is around the corner, you can't see that any of those tents that you've passed on the edge have gone down, but you can again hear screaming, and the screaming is like, it's almost like blood curdling scream. This is no longer panic and unsure scream. This is like pain with it. And around you now, you're hearing actually more of window smashing, people screaming. There's definitely the sound of the rabble has got a lot closer. The doors are slamming. There's people, the few vans that were going, you hear like a smash where someone's clearly just put it into drive and hit forward, round into the van that's in front of them. There's horns going now. So the noise level around you is in pure chaos. As you're all piling towards the car, now the gunfire ramps up a level, almost like you would feel. And weirdly as well, Lieutenant Graves, you haven't heard anything over your radio for a while, which would be odd with all the panic and stuff's going on. It's like you're not sure whether you've just not heard it, you've not caught it, but again, that'd be unusual for you not to be tuned into your own radio and hear it when it comes. But you hear when that comes to you, and you're like, that's the order for put people down. So the gunfire is happening, and that's when now all of you would see that there's the full exit of the tents is happening, and there's just like carnage going around behind you. So you get the feeling like you probably should be getting out of here pretty quick. So as you're all jumping as well, and like 2, 3, 4 people run up and start banging on the door as well. They're like, "Let's come with you, please. Let's come with you. Cool. So you shoot out of there. You can hear and feel the people that were as they're trying to grab on as you've driven away. Like you can feel they're like bouncing off. People are just bouncing off the side of the car. didn't run over anybody, which is nice. So as you look back, you see the lights go on other cars that are there. One of the vans on the left-hand side has kind of just forced itself through the line of vans and has exited. And you probably see about 5 vehicles have left. But then at the same time, from the back, one of the floodlights just comes down and crushes into the car park, and you lose sight of what's going on there. So you can hear the screams as you're distantly pulling away. You see 3 or 4 vans get out, and then floodlight down, poof, darkness across that whole camp now. So you are passing down, and it's strange almost, because for the first part, there's just no... As you're coming out of Buckingham, you almost get cocky in how clear the road is. And then as you start coming down to approach the first town, you start to see lights, which is good. There's still street lights going on, which is great. But then as you come around the corner, and you're like, oh, good, like lights still on. You come around this corner of the road, you see there's a car parked just up on the left-hand side with someone out the back with their like hands up, kind of waving at you. So you see the guy moving, you kind of go around him. You're almost like the trying to ultimately play chicken. You're trying to give the sign that you ain't slowing down. So this guy needs to move. And at the last minute, when they step over, you realise that it's an older gentleman, and you get round. The car wobbles a bit. You don't lose control of it, but you do clip the man. So you feel the poof as he's like come off the front left side of the vehicle. As you kind of go around him, you've hit him, and then you've carried on. So you haven't lost control of the vehicle, which is good, but you have just potentially run over a man. So as you stick your head out the window to check whether he's seen to get down, what you see is, and you kind of trying to work out what you see until you hear the noise of it, of like a light source kind of like spin up into the air. You're like, what? And then you hear the crash, and what you then surmise is one of the vans that was behind you have seen the guy on the road later than you've seen him, and ditched it straight into the side of the kind of... So these are country roads that bank down into ditches. There's a word to these ditches, right? I can't remember what it is. So they've... What you can see, you saw the car, the light, what you assume is the car spinning as it's then bang, you hear the crash as it's hit something. So one of the vans behind you has ditched it into the side. But this is as you're going. So I'm still imagining you're going like 40, 50 mile an hour as you're coming towards Padbury now. No, so it's late. So it's late at night. It's like this kind of comforting that you see in lights. The street lights are still up, and you can see lights in houses. But no, there's no real sign of movement outside. And it's not like every house is lit up as well. You probably assume that some of these were evacuated as part of that process. Some people were refusing to be evacuated. Even from your local areas, you would have seen but people were not getting on the minibuses. So these guys would have turned up and been like, we're evacuating everyone, tried to forcibly remove them, but the army would have been given the call that if people put up too much of a fuss, leave them behind because there's not enough space for everyone. But no sign of panic out in the streets. It's almost like slightly surreal. You've just heard gunfire, you've heard screaming, some of you've seen a car smash, you've seen the lights come down, you've just been in this state of heightened adrenaline and panic. You've had a near miss on the road where you've clipped a person, and then you hit a town, and it's kind of like quiet. As you're then having the conversation about, okay, well, the Winslow's coming up, there's shops there, you can get your resin, you can find. You then see Dylan, boof, there's this vehicle parked across 3/4 of the road. You've got a decision to make. You're like, if I'm carrying on, I'm hitting this car. If I'm hitting the brakes, I'm hitting this car. It's like, you're in like damage limitation mode. So what someone's kind of like, there's where you've seen cars been parked up and whatever, it looks like someone's either tried to create a blockade, or the car has broken down and they've rolled out, but it's blocking one lane and part of another lane. You've got just like a Fiesta. It's not a big, it's like a 3-door saloon. It's blocked out enough that it's across its lane and part of the next lane. And these are thin country roads. Like you get cars side by side going down them, but it's not like you've got any additional space. There's no curbs. It's road. It's like asphalt, grass, ditch. Line yourself up so you're like, okay, I just want to clip this. What I'm thinking is you're coming out and you're like, I need to get all the way over, so I'm just clipping it with enough speed that I stay on the road. So we're going perception check for your like alignment of the car. And then I want a dexterity check for your handling after where you work out how well you were lined up. because you're hitting this car. So it's like lining yourself up. That's your first roll. That's your perception check, and then your dexterity after will be you're going to hit the car because you're planning on clipping it. You know you can't get round. How well do you handle when a car hits a car? How well are you handling what happens? So you line yourself up as you're coming down. You put your foot down. Everyone else around braces, like almost you get the feeling, right? That's you're looking in front. You're hearing someone go. It's like, for fuck's sake, holding on. You clip the front end of the car. What is behind that car is another one, so it kind of like pivots round. And it, whilst it knocks you and you save, it comes into the back end of the truck, the bus, the ice cream van, whatever it is that you want to have. And you save it, but as you're like wobbling and saving, you didn't realise you losing slight control. You realise that there's something definitely wrong with the back wheel as the car wibbles and wobbles and kind of pulls off to the left and ditches into the ditch, into the left-hand side of the road. So you've just saved it and you've bumped down. You've done a bloody good job of, well, the wheel slowed it down enough that you've done a good enough job of avoiding a massive crash. Yeah. No one's gonna die. You've got the survival packs they're giving you are like the old better quality versions of like the JD sports bags, like your drawstring bags. So you carry on your walk down. You are walking. You have 2 torches as you want to use. There are no lights on this road, as you know. You've just been driving down it. And as you were checking out as well, Lieutenant Graves, like checking behind, checking in was on there. You can't really see or hear anything. If anything, between the 2 towns, it's like incredibly quiet and peaceful, and you can hear commotion that you probably from this distance surmises along that dual carriageway still, as if people were still trying to get out through there. There's still people trapped on those roads who have been trying to use them, which is the reason you took these back roads, because those main like dual carriageways and arteries across the whole of the kind of UK road network were starting to get blocked up. So it's quiet where you are, so quiet in fact that you can probably hear that people are still causing a commotion up on the dual carriage. It's on the outskirts, so as you it's part of the town, but it's not in the middle of the town. So it's kind of like on the edge. It was probably a building that was converted a long time back that maybe was, that like I say, was some communal hall or whatever else. But it's got a bit of land around it. It's on the outside. It's now the school, and it butts right up to kind of the entry point of where this road would come into, and also then the town kind of rolls out in front of it. Does that make sense? It's like the head of a table. Yeah. It's open. It's open. So as you come up to it, there's and it almost is odd because there's 2 bricks and a gate across, but the gate's open with a sign that says Winslow Primary School. But it's a gate like just in the pathway. There's like the fence to the side. It's not like it's got a high wall next to it. It's not like it's actually walled in. So it's almost like, this is odd. And it just leads to a little dirt, like kind of dirty gravelly path that leads up and round a corner to where you can see that the small little like school block is. And it's like, again, calling it a school is very nice. It's like a communal hall that they do schools in, they do fetes in, probably have a beer festival like in the summer. It just is an hall that has a multi-purpose. So, welcome to the small humble abode of the Winslow utility room score thing. So this is game mechanic wise, the game is based around you guys having a settlement. So there's the survival aspects are you obviously need somewhere to sleep. You will have a settlement, and at that settlement you can move settlements around as well, to be fair, but that settlement will be your base you come back to, because we'll have a campaign where people will be in and out week on week. You don't have to be here for every campaign. This will be where you are when you're not going out trying to find supplies, and your kind of impetus for improving the base or leaving the base, I suppose, is to go and find materials to make it more secure, to go and find maybe survivors, to definitely go and get food and rations. So you need to go out and try and find ways of improving. To improve the base, you can add barricades. So we'll do a bit of exploring it now in game, but windows and doors can be barricaded to either lock them completely or to improve essentially their AC. So if anyone was to try and attack you, or maybe there's some zombies at some point that try and get in, it makes it harder to do that. So you can spend time in game. So it might be that like every day you don't have to go out hunting. You might be like, do you know what? We're going to take a whole day and we're going to use the materials we've got from the last day's raid, and we're going to roll some checks just to improve the the facility. So we could run through a day in like 2 minutes if you guys were like, we want to barricade up these windows. That's what we're going to do for the day. So we're just going to take the whole day here. So you don't have to leave all the time. But that's the point of the bases, is that you'll have a home. And at some point, you'll move on and float from there. When you're at the home, if you do stay there for the whole day, things can happen there as well. So it's not like just because you stay at home means nothing's going to happen. You could have other people turn up. You could have the army turn up. You could have anything. I don't know. Random shit can happen. So yeah, just because you're at home doesn't necessarily mean you're safe as well. Got to try and kill you. It is late in the evening. There's a chill in the air as you're walking up. You've just had quite a intense day, really. Packing up stuff, a small bag, waiting for these what you assumed were going to be military vehicles to come and pick you up, but were just repurposed LDV vans, for transits, anything that had seats that people can get hold of, thrown into vans. You've seen people that are refusing to come, that are trying to be forcibly removed from their houses. Some people deciding that they would not go at all. But you guys did get in the vans. You did turn up to the Buckingham encampment, were processed, and that whole then area of carnage of things falling apart, attacks happening, and having to flee. You then had altercations across the road as you get in there, and now you're walking up after what feels like 3 days worth of action to this small little kind of, what was it, like a hall on a hill, which is completely pitch black as you make your way up the path, the gravel pathway towards it. So this would sit back from the road. So just so to kind of, for your purposes, it does kind of sit at the head of a table. So if you manage that this pathway here runs down to the main road, it probably runs down for another 25 to 30 meters. So you are way back from the main road, but that main road then just runs straight into the town of Winslow. So as you look into the room, you see that there's the kitchenette you came through, there's the main room, and then there's a smaller room to the back corner. Okay, cool. So you'll settle down, you'll find your different corners of that main, well, I'm assuming in that main big room, with whatever little, you have pretty much no creature comforts, so fully clothed unless you're using them to make pillows and bits. You've got no bedding. You didn't find anything in that room that would be useful for kind of camping and sleeping out, and you'll bed down to sleep. So you all start to wake up naturally across your different timescales. Those that sleep in longer, those that wake up with the sun would start to wake up. You've just slept a night on a hard wooden floor. It's not the comfiest sleep. Maybe you think, do you know what, if we're going to be doing this more, we probably don't want to be sleeping on the floor much more. And then kind of thoughts back to what happened yesterday, how you got thrown together with these guys, and what it all means. Like, what does this mean for us now? Like, even when you're looking at things to improve, you're like, are we actually talking about like securing a hall? Like, are we going to go to this army base? Like, what does this all mean? This is, like, I don't really understand the gravity of the situation. So kind of fresh with those questions of the day. You all wake up, and we will probably finish there.